I grew up on a farm in just north of Damascus. We farmed about 400 to 450 acres. The farm wasn't that big. That was with rented ground. And we raised about 200 hogs. And we had about 35 to 40 acres of sweet corn every year. My dad was a very tough guy, not physically abusive or anything like that, but he was mentally, sometimes it was abusive on us. We were scared of him. Mom was the peacemaker in the family. She kept all the peace, didn't she? And she smoothed things over and kept us all together and kept the puzzle put together when it would fall apart.
I grew up in Alliance, Ohio. I was the middle child. I had two brothers. We really had a very loving family. It wasn't so much as what we said in words, it was more of like actions. I remember when my dad had his open heart surgery, it's been 5 years ago. That was when I decided that we were just gonna start saying, I love you. And now we do it all the time, so it's great. My mom didn't work until us kids were all in school. And my mom also worked at a High Edison, just like his dad. And my dad worked my entire childhood. And I was diagnosed at 6 years old with rheumatoid arthritis. And I got a lot of attention from my parents growing up. So I got a little teasing from my siblings for that. But it was just them being typical brothers. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're a really close family. It made me self-conscious. It made me feel bad at times, and it really lowered my self-esteem. I just felt different than everybody else.
I loved all the sports. I played football and basketball and ran track, and it was hard balancing the farm work and the sports sometimes because but sports was number one thing in our family. It wasn't about anything else but the sports, and then the farm comes second, and then grades come third.
I couldn't participate in any kind of athletics or physical stuff because of my arthritis, so I was musical. I played the saxophone and the oboe in band, and I also sang in choir. I've always loved music, and I still love music. And me and my friends were total nerds, for sure. Yeah, we really were good kids. We were good students.
Alcohol was never in my immediate family. My dad never drank. Mom and dad, neither one drank. Never saw him have a drink, and I believe they never did. But my grandfather, the diehard Romanian, he was a drinker. My dad would always take his mom and dad for rides on Sundays. So we'd always go down to the house with them, and they'd go out in the car. And you guys wanted to go, and no, my brother and I, we'd stay behind. And I'd always pour my grandpa shots of whiskey. He'd want a shot of whiskey, and I'd pour it for him. You know, he didn't get around very good. His arthritis was bad in his hands, and so it was just something I started doing for him, and didn't think that much about it. But he would just down a shot of whiskey, and I'm like, that is not very much. And so I got inquisitive about it, and I think it's about 10 years old. And I decided when they went for the ride that I was gonna get the shot glass out, pour myself a shot. I about choked to death on it. It was a terrible taste, but I drank it, and I got this funny feeling a few minutes later after just one shot. So I had another one, and it felt pretty good. And so then it became a thing that every Sunday I couldn't wait for them to leave because I would get it. I didn't like the taste, but I liked the feeling it gave me. And it didn't take me long before I started liking the taste. It was something that, it was nothing else but whiskey back then. That's all I drank, and that's all I had access to. So that's when it started for me. Every weekend we were camping. We'd either be at our farm, the neighbor's farm, or the other neighbor kid's house. And I would always drive a tractor when we went to camp out, sleep out on the weekends. And I had an old wind-up alarm clock. And because I had to be home to do chores. And if I wasn't home to do chores, I was in serious trouble.
When I was first diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I was actually sent to a psychiatrist. And I didn't know at that time that this doctor was a psychiatrist. Whenever I would go to Cleveland, I would see two different physicians. And one would be my medical doctor, and one would be this other guy who would just talk to me about things. And I didn't find out till much later in life that that's who that was. But he talked to me quite a bit about it, about, not following peer pressure, and just because it would cause me liver damage and kidney damage down the road. So, and my parents were both extremely strict. So, and I just never wanted to give them a reason to be disappointed in me. So
I played basketball we had like 4 or 5 different grade schools, and we'd play among ourselves. And I went to a different grade school than Deb did. And she was a cheerleader. And I think it was 5th grade, 5th or 6th. I saw this cute little cheerleader. I thought, wow, boy, is she cute, And I was a pretty mature 6th grader, 5th grader for chasing girls.
I also first saw him in 6th grade. We were on a field trip, and I saw him get on the bus and sit in the back seat with a girl. And I was like, man, he's really cute. But and then in junior high, I got to meet him, and I was just like, no, not interested in this bad boy right here. But when we got to 9th grade, we started dating. We dated off and on through high school. He just started paying attention to me, and I liked it. And I think because we were complete opposites, I was attracted to him. So
I think part of it was that she felt funny with her arthritis. She had a little limp, and some people, guys, the guys would shy away a little bit from something like that, and I didn't care. I knew she was cute, and that's all that mattered to me. And so I pursued you pretty hard. I did.
Off and on, we would break up.
Yeah, but not too long. I'd be asking forgiveness, wailing my way back in, because it was my fault. I'd screw up somehow and wasn't living up to her expectations of what she, wanted her boyfriend to be. And then I'd bat my brown eyes at her and reel her back in, to get her back in my arms. So, yeah.
That was true.
When I got out of school, I decided I wasn't going to college because I wasn't smart enough. I worked at a garage for a little while, and then I went to farming. Jumped 2 different farms there after a couple years. 2 to 3 months I was there, and a job opened up in the oil and gas business, and I couldn't turn it down. Started out with a contracting work in the oil and gas business, and then I went to a company job. And I've been there now for 33 years with the same company, and worked my way up the ladder and applied myself and got some breaks, got some teaching on the job where I should have been a geologist.
I graduated 6th in our class, and I got quite a few scholarships and went to the University of Akron. And I would come home every single weekend so I could see Tim. And so I always had missed out on all the fun that was going on at school. And I always kind of felt like I was left out. But nobody ever made me feel that way. That was just me. And so I worked really hard in school. I got my first C my freshman year, and I was pretty defeated. And then I decided that I needed to work harder than I ever did before. So I spent a lot of time in the library.
We started looking at rings and stuff, and I asked her to marry me. I said, I want to marry you. I want a future with you. And she said yes, and I was like, wow, okay, it's for real, it's on. Now you go tell your mom and dad, because I said I was scared to tell them. I didn't want no part of that. I said, you're gonna have to handle that with your mom and dad, because at that point in time, we didn't have a great relationship. And so I knew that they were gonna be set back by it a little bit.
They were not happy, and I knew they weren't gonna be happy. I knew how they felt about Tim. They knew about his reputation, and so we had quite a few conversations about it. But and I was not the nicest to my parents back then, and I said a lot of things that were very hurtful to them, and kind of that old adage where the more they push, the more it pushes you towards them.
When we got married, I remember him shaking my hand as we were leaving, and he said, you better take good care of her. And I mean, he squeezed my hand, which I never shook hands with a man to squeeze my hand like that. And I said, yes, sir, I will. She knew I drank. she let it go because it was okay. You know, she put up with it. I shouldn't say it was okay, but she accepted it. You know, and we'd go out to a bar and play pool once in a while, and she'd always drive and to and from, and I'd have a beer or two because she'd say, "That's your third." You know, she was counting them, which, you know,
I always kept track.
I never counted. There was a first one and the last one, you know. But when I was with her, I kept it under wraps, and that was a big secret because she didn't know how much I was drinking. She had no idea that alcohol was consuming my life. We were married, and there was a little party up at the garage I think I'd used to work at, you know, and I stopped in there to have a Christmas party, and I had a few drinks with them, and then I left, pulled out, and instead of going the back way, crossed 62 and down the back roads, and I'd have been home in 3 minutes versus 2.5 going on the main highways. I pulled right out in front of a state patrolman, and he got me for DUI. It was a rough evening. She was highly disappointed in me, crushed.
Oh, I was really mad. I was really mad. And I guess I was concerned about who was going to find out, who was going to see it in the paper, where my work coworker is going to see it. And I was most concerned about my parents seeing it and finding out. You know, I mean, I was married, grown adult in all sense of the terms, but I was still concerned about what my parents thought. And, you know, I knew that he drank. It didn't really bother me when we were dating because it seemed harmless, I guess I should say. But after that, yeah, the rules were going to change. And the rules did change. I basically said there wasn't going to be any more alcohol in our home. And that's the way it was. There was no alcohol in our home, but of course, he wasn't home 24/7. So when he wasn't home, that was out of my control. And that's, I was trying to control a situation that wasn't mine to control. And so that's where I think my control issues started.
Yeah, I was out of town, and the drinking started picking up because she didn't know when I was drinking because I had a company credit card with unlimited access to whatever I needed and wanted. My boss didn't care. It was just part of the job and part of the just, you know, what goes on, and didn't ever think about anything happening. But the drinking got really ramped up when I was over there. I drank a lot. All my evenings were consumed with alcohol. Every night, go out to dinner and a bunch of drinks, and it got way out of control.
After we were married, we wanted to have children, so we started to try, but my body was definitely not cooperating. I got pregnant, and I had my first miscarriage, and then I had 5 more miscarriages before I got pregnant with our oldest son. And that pregnancy was pretty difficult. I had preterm labor starting at 20 weeks. So I went into the hospital, and they put me on IV medications and oral medications. And so that made me feel like a failure. It just really hit my self-esteem hard. But on June 17th, 1988, Derek was born, and he was perfect. And then we wanted to have another child, which my parents thought I was crazy. But I had another miscarriage, but then I got pregnant with Tyler and had no issues whatsoever. And he was born on January 10th, 1992, and he was perfect too.
It was a very emotional time for her, and what a struggle. But she kept fighting, and hung in there, and we got our 2 boys.
I was so busy with the kids and, raising the kids and working and that I really didn't worry too much about what was going on when he was out of town. I mean, I knew he was drinking, but it was kind of one of those things I thought if nobody else knew, it was okay.
That's when I got the second DUI and I had to make that phone call home. I've said this all along in recovery. Nobody's ever sorry until they get caught. I mean, that's and I was so sorry, and I was so embarrassed, and I was so worried about my job. I thought I'm going to lose my job. I've got a really good job. I'm very fortunate where I'm at, but now I've got a real legitimate DUI with computer systems nowadays, and worried about my job, worried about our marriage. I thought it was tried, wasn't it? it was tried, and she was forgiving, and we worked through it. It just didn't happen overnight. It took some time to work through that. But my company really liked me, so they actually hired an attorney to minimize the damages and paid all the attorney fees for me. And I wondered if it would make it not me giving up, because I was in love. I loved her. I was worried about she was going to say, tell me, you're now outside looking in. I'm done. I was really concerned with that.
I just was tired of living that way, always wondering whether he was drinking. Would he come home drinking? Was he drinking over there? Was he driving? And yeah, it was rough.
When I'd come home, we were a family. I didn't drink. I didn't drink at home. I'd be home for 2 or 3 days, and then I might be home for weeks at a time. I just wasn't. But we were just a happy family. We were involved in a lot of things with our kids, and so no one else knew it. It was a great cover-up.
Living a double life.
Going to church on Sunday and drinking on Monday. Quite a few years later, that I got stopped again. I was working out of town, close enough. I could have come home. I could stay. I decided I was going to come home. I'd been drinking some. I thought, I'll just crawl into bed. She'll never know it. I got sleepy, so I pulled over to rest, and cops decided to pull in and check on me. And again, I found myself in trouble for drinking again. This was many years, on down past the other DUI, and I had to tell her about that and start that process over again, the healing process again. And my company demanded me to go to AA meetings. They were very generous with me. I went to AA meetings for a year straight, got my paper signed, and faxed it from the house here down to the office. Every month I'd fax it because they have the dates on it, stamp them, and they made me go to those for a year. And I think that's partially what probably saved our marriage, is because I came out of denial. I finally come out of denial and go, all right, yeah, Tim, you do have a drinking problem.
Once that he was no longer working out of town, it was a lot easier because he was home. So, I was really good at knowing when he'd been drinking. But even talking on the phone, there was certain things he would say. Like he would say, "Hey, babe." That's the only time he ever said babe, was when he was drinking. And as soon as he'd say it, it was like the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. But yeah, I did buy a breathalyzer. But we didn't hardly ever use it because I just knew. I was really good at seeing the signs.
I knew I had an issue, okay? And I was fighting that issue. I was fighting it to win and fighting it not wanting to give it up. It was pulling on both sides of me. So there was a phone calls made. The kids finally found out. They never knew about my DUIs. They didn't know that stuff. We was able to keep it. There's no sense that we felt there was no sense in them knowing when they were younger.
They didn't know until they were older that there was a problem.
Right. So she said, listen, your boys are coming down. We're going to have a talk. I said, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. She goes, yes, we are. And we sat in the living room, the three of them, and it got very emotional. It was a tough time. It was a very tough time for me because I was disappointed in my family. My kids look at me in the eye, tears in their eyes, and they love me. My kids love me, man. They love me a lot, and we were and we still are a very close family. And they wanted me to win this battle, and I said, don't know what to do, and I was crying, and so Deb had mentioned Celebrate Recovery, huh?
Yeah.
And didn't know much about it, knew a little bit about it. So I called the guy that I knew that I told them I'm going to go. I'm going to call this guy tomorrow and I'm going to sit down and talk to him.
I'd felt like we'd been down this road before, that he had promised in the past, I won't drink anymore. I promise I won't drink anymore. And it just never stuck. So I just really kind of felt like it was hopeless. But I kind of felt like this was our last ditch effort with Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah, we were in love. I mean, we were in love the whole time. There wasn't nothing, wouldn't you say? I mean, we always in love with each other, but she couldn't do it anymore.
On that night, I told him he needed to go talk to the pastor at Damascus, Celebrate Recovery.
I made that appointment, and I went in and next day and sat down, and a good 2 hours, 2.5 hours, we sat there, talked about old times, and then we got to the nitty gritty, and it's pretty emotional for me, but he said, you need to be here. You need, explain the program to me somewhat, and I need to be there. So and we talked more about it, and I thought, yeah, this is where I need to be. I wasn't sure if I needed to be there for me or if I needed to be there for my wife. Didn't know. I wasn't sure. I mean, it was all new. Things were flying. Kids are disappointed, upset, tears are being shed from intervention. Then we go up there, and I'm going, okay. So I go. I was nervous as all get out. Because I grew up in Damascus, Ohio, and I'm going to go to a Celebrate Recovery in my basically hometown, where I grew up in that area. Everybody knows everybody. Who's going to know me? Who's going to recognize me? What are they going to say to me? I'm embarrassed. I'm going to be so embarrassed. And so I got there, and I sat there, and I sat there, and I sat there, and I didn't have any choice. I had to go in. So I got out of the truck, and I went in, walked in the door. People were smiling. I was like, why is people so happy? They're smiling, high-fiving, hey, good to see you, glad you're here. So I come home, I told Deb, I said, I think this is where I really need to be, and I meant it. I said, I think this is it. I said, and I said, she goes, well, you going back next week? I said, absolutely. I said, this is gonna work. I said, this is gonna work. And she looked at me and she goes, time will tell if you really want this. I went quite a few times. I went every week. I didn't miss a week. And I went and I went and I went. And after a couple months?
Couple months.
I asked Deb to go with me. And her reaction was,
why do I need to go? That's exactly what I said. It's like, why do I need to go? What's wrong with me? It's all you. But I did decide to go because I could see things were changing for him. I could see he was more relaxed. And it just seemed like there was less tension in the house. So I went. And the very first night, my cousin goes there. And, after a large group, she comes up to me and she hands me a pamphlet. She said, here, I want you to read this. And it was a codependency pamphlet. And I opened it up and I looked at it and I started reading it and I'm like, wow, okay, that's me. So, and I went back ever since. I really struggled with anxiety and really constant worry and codependency, perfectionism. I thought life had to be perfect to be good. And our life was far from perfect. So I thought life wasn't good. I guess the more that I went, the more I could hear other people's struggles and I could hear about their struggles and see that they were happy. And I was like, hey, they're not perfect and they're happy. So things don't have to be perfect. And I guess I always kind of felt a little bit like I wasn't good enough. That we always went to church when the kids were growing up, when they were little, but I never really had that relationship with God. So once I started going to CR, I felt like I was developing a relationship with God, and I was learning that He loved me just like I was. You know, that yes, I have disabilities, and yes, I'm not perfect, but it's okay. It's been a wonderful program for us and our marriage, and even with our kids. We are so much closer to our kids now. And I also feel like we have a common goal now. You know, with Celebrate Recovery, it's brought us closer, but it's also, we're working together on the same thing. You know, we've always he's had his job, I've had my job, you know, and I mean, we've had the kids, but I feel like now we have something we do together.
After the first, I made the turn after the first lesson. It's on denial, and I realized I'm not God. I'm not perfect, and I'm gonna screw up, and I'm gonna make mistakes, and it's okay, because we have He's a forgiving God, and I think God knows when we're trying and we're working at it. You know, it's one thing to be forgiven. I think sometimes when you're not working at it, but if you're working at it, you're making an honest effort, and God sees that. And I made that turn. I said, hey, look, I got a problem, and I need God in my life. And I've got some really good people around me that surround me that and that's what my favorite Bible verse is, where iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. And that is so true, because people keep you sharp. They check up on you. You know, the first guy I met when I come in the door that remembered me and I didn't remember him, I still get a text message every morning from that guy. I get a Bible verse every morning 5 years later. The alcohol was a tough thing, and now I've got other issues. I find, you know, the alcohol got me through the doors of Celebrate Recovery. 5 years now, I can help people. I can talk to people. I'm honest with people. There's not anybody that I'm not honest with about where I was and where I'm at today.
So I've made some really wonderful friends, and they know the things I struggle with, and they support me, and they love me in spite of it. And they're also there when I start to slip back into my old habits to gently correct me and say, hey, Deb, I think I can see a little bit of this. And I don't take offense to that, because I know they're doing it because they love me and they want me to keep growing in my recovery. I got a blue chip on our opening day, which was in September of 18. And to put a stake in the ground, to turn my fears over to God and my anxiety and my worry. And I've come a long way.
Oh, she's come a long ways.
When we first started, I told him, I'll do whatever you need me to do in the background. I will not get on the stage. I am not doing lessons. I'm not ever doing my testimony. I'm never leading a step study. And I've done all that. And I know it's because of God.
It's amazing what God can do. I'm not afraid to tell anybody about my life. I'm not afraid to get on a microphone and stand in front of people. It's so awesome to get phone calls from somebody and say, could you sit down with me and talk to me? It's such a healing thing to be able to go. And I just tell them, I said, look, I'm not perfect. You know, here's my story. I'll tell you my story for you feel more relaxed when you want to talk to me about yours. I'll just be open about who I am and where I was and where I'm at today. Because of Celebrate Recovery, it's just brought me full circle. It just is a healing process that we love to show people. We can't fix anybody. We're not there to fix anybody. You've got to want to fix yourself. And through God and through Christ, you can do that through CR. If you work the steps and the principles, but you build friendships, you build accountability partners, you build sponsors, and you get people that are honest in there and they know that they're not alone. Alcohol is 33% at Celebrate Recovery. 33% of the people at Celebrate is alcohol and drugs. The other 66, 67% is A to Z. It's anxiety, it's food, it's money, it's anger, it's relationship issues, it's pornography. It can be anything. And we've watched the healing and seen it in our own eyes, and it's just awesome.
Well, I know that I wouldn't be where I am today if we wouldn't have had the struggles we had, because if we wouldn't have had the struggles, we would have never made it to CR. And because of CR, I'm not that little girl with low self-worth anymore. But I found my worth in Jesus Christ. And I felt like we had our marriage back. I have to thank Celebrate Recovery for that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
My name is Christy, and my story includes contracting hepatitis, aplastic anemia, and nearly dying from a brain hemorrhage when I was young.
My name is Mark, and my story includes playing college football, working in a nightclub while in college.
My name is Deb, and my story includes a love for music, a struggle with shyness and low self-esteem.
My name is Tim. My story includes excelling in sports and being introduced to alcohol at the age of 10.
Being sexually assaulted by my friend's dad when I was 12.
Running a family business. A mom who bought me subscriptions to Playboy when I was 20 years old.
Loving my wife and my family with all my heart.
Wanting everything and everyone to be perfect.
18 years of off and on self-harm.
My story includes excessive drinking when working out of town.
Friends from Greenford Christian Church who have loved and nurtured me unconditionally.
An invitation to church that led me to accepting Christ as my Savior.
Food addiction. Baptism.
Drinking while I was traveling.
And my story also includes an invitation to celebrate recovery.
An invitation to celebrate recovery.
An invitation
to celebrate recovery.
Thank you for spending some time with us. How did Tim and Deb's story impact you? Does Celebrate Recovery sound like something you might want to learn more about? Feel free to email Zach at zking@greenfordchristian.org. He would love to chat with you.